Choke point number 4 is the Black Sea, with Ukraine and Russia attacking commercial shipping and port infrastructure. Ships are now trying to install anti-drone netting for protection. This was all started, and I think that it's important to point this out, by the Ukrainians. The Russians and the Ukrainians had a hands-off sort of informal truce about food shipping, about civilian shipping in the region. And the Russians, even though they possessed the capability to completely shut down all Ukrainian shipping in the Black Sea, took a hands-off approach to it because they didn't want to mess with global food supply. Those are their official reasons. Everyone said Russia doesn't care about global food supply. They just can't do anything to the Ukrainians. And I think that the Ukrainians are a little high on their own supply here, decided they were going to mess with Russian civilian shipping in the Black Sea, and sort of allowed Russia to take the gloves off and completely blockade Ukraine by destroying any ship that tries to get through and destroying their port facilities. So, Russia was actually, from what we can tell now, just allowing Ukrainian shipping to continue because they didn't want to disrupt food supplies to the global south. So what has happened as a result of that? Freight costs for Black Sea Mediterranean routes have skyrocketed to about $440,948 per day, as opposed to around $40,000 to $50,000 per day. And Ukraine has paused drone strikes on non-Russian vessels, like those carrying Kazakh oil, but Russia has not responded yet. They're not going to stop. Why would they? Ukraine
it doesn't make any
is
sense.
On the ropes. Yeah, Ukraine is on the ropes, and doing a truce now in the Black Sea only benefits Ukraine. It doesn't benefit Russia at all. And now Ukrainian grain exports are down 76%, and that was pretty much their only export. That is their major source of income for Ukraine. And nobody's giving out loans or free money to Ukraine anymore. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that if Russia wanted this war to wrap up soon, that they would not allow Ukrainian grain exports again. Choke point number
I don't think there's as much money to give out anymore.
That's true. Choke point number 5 is the Northern Sea route in the Arctic. There was recently a tanker that suffered serious hull damage while trying to navigate Arctic ice despite icebreaker assistance. It shows that this is a very dangerous path to take, and really only China and Russia possess the ability to do this in any significant numbers. And they're not part of the global community.
Well, yeah, they're just those are just rogue states which happen to make up
most of the people,
in the
and the landmass.
But other than that, they're not. They don't count.
Choke point number 6 is the Taiwan Strait in the South China Sea. China is doing more naval drills with Indonesia off of Taiwan's east coast, which Taiwan has condemned as a dangerous provocation. And the Philippines have just claimed Scarborough Shoal as part of its territory. And while basically things haven't stopped there yet, or it hasn't impeded traffic there yet, it's a possible choke point, and it could impede traffic soon. Choke point number 7 is the Rhine and the Danube rivers in Europe, with record low water levels because of drought. Germany's Rhine River is at the lowest level since 1880, and the Danube is also pretty low. It needs weeks of sustained rain to alleviate the crisis, which has caused major supply chain disruptions, as there's still a lot of boat traffic. It's also compounding the disruption of Ukrainian grain exports, which are primarily diverted through the Romanian ports on the Danube. So, yeah, the catalyst to all of this is the Red Sea choke point, and then everything else is sort of cascading from that.
Right, everything else, this is a problem, that's a problem, this is an issue, but without the Red Sea, it wouldn't be as much of one. It wouldn't really be even nearly as much of one.
Right. So, did you know that the United States lost 25% of its Reaper drone fleet in the war with Iran, which cost between $30 and $50 million each? Meaning that the total cost to taxpayers so far is 1.3 billion. And to replace them would be what? Another 1.3 billion?
I mean, that's almost as much as the ask for the Pentagon budget by Hegseth recently.
Right. So, I mean, apparently these things are slow enough and easy to shoot down. And also, Iran took out a bunch of them on the ground as well. They did a really good job with their drone strikes. Despite how easy these things are to shoot down, they're an important cornerstone of U.S. strategy. They don't have anything better than this. And you'll hear me harp on all the time about the military procurement problems. Like, we buy things for massively inflated prices because that's just how the system works, and there's nothing we can really do about it. As opposed to China and Russia, who either have public-private partnerships for their arms manufacturing or completely nationalized arms manufacturing. So they get things infinitely cheaper than the United States does.
Yeah, not to mention
which is why
they are more or less centrally kind of like planned enough to where the logistics of moving them around and mixing and matching things is not nearly as tricky for them.
The drone fleet has been reduced to about 135 aircraft, and the Air Force's desired operational floor is 189. And they don't make the MQ-9 Reaper drones anymore. They have a handful of parts left over, and so they're going to have to do something about that. I guess they never thought that they were ever going to get shot down, which is ridiculous.
I think at one point the assumption was always that they were only going to be used against opponents who were not sophisticated enough to shoot down this many.
Right. I mean, but the Houthis shot down a ton of them, remember, last year?
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's non-state actors, but also the Houthis almost hit a couple of aircraft carriers, if you remember correctly.
But this is what happens. This is a hubris is just a problem. Yes.
Imperial hubris. That's what this is called. The United States was so used to, for the longest time, being the biggest and baddest empire in the world. And there's a sort of like entropy that comes along with imperial domination, where your military rots out from the inside and your colonial police forces cease to be effective. And we've gotten to the point now in the U.S. military where we rely on special forces to do everything. Because we've shifted over to a model of engagement that is supposed to be quick strikes to get things done as quickly as possible, which is why we can't maintain a sea blockade. Well, that's not why. It's not the only reason. We'll get to that, but I'm going to move on to the next section. The next section is talking about how, speaking of military procurement problems, taxpayers paid $533 million to an artillery plant that made nothing. So this is from ProPublica. In Mesquite, Texas, there's a artillery shell plant that was supposed to be making 105 millimeter artillery shells for Ukraine, and they failed over the course of, it's the beginning of the Ukraine war, I believe, and they shut down production in 2025 without having built anything. So, despite receiving $533 million from the Army, General Dynamics' new factory never manufactured a single usable artillery shell. Oh. And the Army ordered work halted on two of its three production lines in August of last year. To speed up aid, Congress waived standard contracting safeguards, and the Army used this to award General Dynamics a no-bid contract without proper vetting. And the company proposed using unproven machinery from a Turkish subcontractor. The factory was plagued with problems. Giant robot arms would catch fire and smash into equipment and drop heavy steel. The key flow-forming machines cracked more steel than they shaped. Giant presses required regular pounding with sledgehammers to function. And the buildings had sinking foundations, flooding, and smoke-filled air. It was dangerous working conditions, with workers suffering in 100-degree heat with acrid smoke that turned their mucus black.
Man, that sounds like a Mega Man level. Like you have to go into this factory.
An OSHA inspection was thwarted when the dangerous machinery was mysteriously not operating during the visit. And the tensions were so high between the American staff and the Turkish technicians It was so high that Turkish technicians were secretive and refused to share machine passwords. And there were unsubstantiated rumors of sabotage and espionage, and bored workers with nothing to do would just do crossword puzzles and go to sleep. So, there's been no recoupment. The Army has not held General Dynamics financially accountable or asked for any of the money back, and the company is still in charge of the factory. And since the failure, the General Dynamics unit responsible has received $2.5 billion more in new contract awards, and the Turkish subcontractor has received $435 million more no-bid contracts to build a TNT factory.
Well, yeah, like what are you going to do? Like open it up for like competition for these contracts? That would violate, the free market or whatever.
And while the factory was failing, Army officials and General Dynamics publicly touted its progress, downplaying delays and claiming production was on track. And the company's CEO told investors the plant was running and producing as anticipated. And its plan to fix General Dynamics' plan to fix the factory involves bringing in artificial intelligence from a startup, an untested startup which has no prior defense manufacturing experience. So things are just going great over here in the United States. And so that this article from ProPublica talks about how this is just a symptom of a larger systemic problem in the United States defense industry, where expensive failures are not punished and are rewarded with more spending. And the Army's own Inspector General report offered only tepid recommendations, and the Army deflected blame, saying it did nothing wrong. And as the Trump administration is trying to boost the defense budget, it can't afford to admit that anything bad happened at all.
Yeah, that should give you all sorts of confidence that they will definitely fix the problem. They just won't acknowledge that there is a problem.
Right, exactly.
But other than that, they will definitely fix it.
Now, moving back over to the Middle East, there's been a pretty serious mental health and morale crisis aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, with multiple sailors having tried to jump overboard during this extremely long extended deployment. Multiple sailors have attempted to go overboard, and families are raising urgent concerns about the exhaustion and lack of support. There was the first attempted overboard was a sailor whose wife is named Annabelle Loma, attempted to jump from the carrier, and he's now on medical hold and is terrified of receiving a dishonorable discharge, fearing a 13-year career ruined due to burnout. Communication with him has been extremely limited, says his wife. The second overboard attempt, a sailor on watch intervened to stop a shipmate from going overboard, pulling him to safety with the help of others. The wife of the intervening sailor confirmed the incident. And Stars and Stripes reported recently that the crew was informed of an overboarding attempt via a shipwide announcement, confirming at least one more of these events. So the core cause appears to be a brutal extended deployment. The USS Abraham Lincoln has about 5,000 sailors and Marines, began its deployment on November 21st, 2025, and has now been deployed for 8 months with no end in sight. It was supposed to end in May 2026, but it keeps being extended with no publicly announced return date. And the Navy is prepping the USS Theodore Roosevelt to relieve it, but as of now, there's no timeline that has been provided, so no one knows when they're going to be relieved.
This situation is like mind blowing. Like I can't fathom the how they expect this to not blow up in their face dramatically at some point. That's before too much longer. These sailors are going to get their much needed shore leave, and you can't deny this story anymore and say, "Oh, this is just a CNN hoax or whatever." Like, I don't know what they're going to do, but this is like it's a big deal.
I saw somewhere that the longest deployment in World War II was 495 days. But most World War II deployments were significantly shorter than this one.
Well, yeah,
I saw somewhere else
like 30 to 45 days on average.
Right, yeah. Most World War II aircraft carrier deployments were 30 to 45 days, but there was one that was really long. Let's see. The USS Hornet set the record by spending 495 consecutive calendar days away from the continental U.S. But that's not what I'm talking about when I say deployments, because they often returned to a shore base like in Pearl Harbor or one of the forward operating bases of the U.S. Navy, like Midway or Guam or whatever else after that was taken back. But yeah, there was that. That's not what I mean by deployments here. Like these ships that are in the Persian Gulf right now, the aircraft carrier and of course the supporting fleet of the aircraft carrier. The closest supply base is in Diego Garcia, which is 2,000 miles away.
Right, and it's not like you work for a month without getting a vacation. So you work for a month without getting a day off.
It's you live at work for a month without a day off.
Yeah. Or actually, instead of a month, it's, would you say 400 and how many days?
495 days.
Yeah.
So families are concerned because there's been very little, if any, communication. Family members are struggling with the uncertainty of when their family members are going to return. They're missing birthdays, homecomings, start of senior year of high school, stuff like that. Sailors, loved ones describe sailors as exhausted and worried and depressed. And one father expressed an unbearable burden, feeling the circumstances of his son. The circumstances will get the best of his son. They're worried about sailors harming themselves. And the Navy is, like, as I mentioned, hasn't been communicative about when they might be relieved or when they might be returning home. There have been over 200 family members that met with Acting Secretary of the Navy, Hung Kao, in San Diego in a virtual meeting. And they say, we hear you loud and clear, but still have done nothing to actually assuage their concerns. Navy leadership pointed to deployed counselors, chaplains, and human factors council representatives designed to review sailors' well-being and showing that they think everything is still okay according to these fail-safes that they have. But yeah, part of the reason is that the U.S. Navy cannot enter its bases in the Gulf, which were destroyed anyway. And that's the fact of the matter is there's the Fifth Fleet base in Bahrain is gone now. All of the bases that the U.S. Navy could stop and refuel in are gone now, and the closest one is Diego Garcia's, which is in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it is 2,000 miles away from where the fleet is currently deployed.
Right. It's almost like the only thing to do is to just leave.
Yeah, that is the only thing to do.